So we're in the month of Kislev, and as I was just studying about the month and just looking over all the things that are associated with this month, I was just like, God, what do you want me to say to the people? I haven't really said a lot yet, and I'm waiting on you to release me to say something. I see this and I see this, but I just didn't have a go ahead of like, this is what I want to say. This is what I'm breathing on right now. And this morning, he reminded me of a phrase that a friend of mine, a prophetic voice, the wife of an incredible teacher of the Bible, spoke this several years ago, and she said, endure the contradiction. Sometimes in your life, you have to endure the contradiction. You receive a prophetic word, you have a vision, you have a dream, you've got a verse, you've got a plan, and you have to endure the contradiction. And so that's this is the first part of this, and I just want to encourage us to not give in to the contradiction, not to quit because of the contradiction. What you're seeing in your life might not be what the word of the Lord is for your life. Don't quit. God is not a liar. He is not failing you. You have not missed it. Hold on, because this is temporary. This enduring is a temporary thing. Recently, there was a visiting minister at our church, and he said that the wait, WAIT, is God's waiting, is his weight room, WEIGHT, his weight room. And so while you are waiting, you are going to build up your strength. And it made me think of Caleb. And Caleb had to wait 40 years because his contemporaries did not believe the word of the Lord. They had doubts, they had fears, they had, I don't know, they did not get on board with what God was saying. They did not go and take the promised land. They believed nonsense, and so they were perishing, but he was pressing. He was continuing to get stronger. And when he took his mountain at 83, 4, 5 years old, he went in there just as strong as he had been 40 years earlier. He had been delayed, but he had not been denied. And in that time, he was stronger, he was faster, he was better. He didn't age. He didn't get in the negative sense, right? He was older, but he wasn't too old. He went, oh, I'm 80 years old. I can't even take my mountain now. A lot of times that was what happens to us, though. We get that woe is me, victim mindset, entitlement. Well, I should have had this, but I didn't, and it's all their fault. And we start to do that, and we start to actually agree with the enemy. We start to put our mouth on in agreement with the accuser of the brethren, the accuser who comes and he says all this, and Caleb could have gotten in that mindset. He could have, Joshua too, they could have been like, hey, you guys have screwed this up for us, you've really messed us up, you made us wait 40 years and we just hate you, and we just, but that's not the way that they acted. Their hearts were right, and they kept getting stronger, and they kept getting more and more prepared for the thing. Caleb had seen the promised land. He planned which mountain he wanted. He'd already decided, I want that place over there. It's got these springs over here. I want this. And I think he'd probably been sketching in the dirt. This is where I'm going to build my house. This is what I'm going to do with the animals. Here's where I'm going to plant my vineyard. You know, he already had an idea of what he was going to do, how he was going to decorate, how he was going to steward that. And he spent that time prepping and preparing and dreaming and becoming the person that could steward what God was getting ready to do for him. He had to endure the contradiction. But in that waiting time, he wasn't getting discouraged and depressed. He didn't drop the word of the Lord. He didn't lose it or leave it. He continued to press in to what God had said. So if God has given you a prophetic word, if he has given you a dream or a vision, expect to fight. Expect to fight. Expect pushback from the enemy. When Moses showed up and said, I'm here, God has sent me to free you, what happened? Pharaoh said, oh, you're not taking my slaves. And their work became harder. He took away the straw and said, y'all got to make the same number of bricks, but I'm not going to give you the materials to make them. So their work became more difficult, and they were like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel like freedom here. Get out of here, Moses. We don't want you. They didn't realize if they had really sent Moses away, that they would have forfeited God's plan for their lives. They would have forfeited the freedom that Moses was there to bring to them. Abraham, first his name was Abram, exalted father, and God comes to him and says, hey, you got this son from this concubine. You don't have this great, all these descendants I've promised you yet, but I'm going to change your name and I'm going to call you Abraham. Why don't you walk around and say, hi, everybody, my name is Abraham. And by the way, that means a father of a multitude, father of nations. And so he walked around carrying this name, representing himself, saying, this is my identity. And yet he hadn't even had the child of the promise yet. And so, a lot of times God asks us to partner with a word that sounds crazy, that looks crazy, and we start to walk into something and actually it looks like the opposite of what God has told us. Just some for your information's sake, there's so many contradictions associated with this month of Kislev. It's the month associated with the tribe of Benjamin. And Benjamin's name means son of my right hand, right? That's what Jacob named him, son of my right hand. But Benjamin is the tribe of left-handed warriors. This is what Benjamin is known for, these left-handed warriors, these left-handed archers. Also, they're known for being these great warriors, but they were almost wiped out in a civil war in the book of Judges, which is a really rough story in the Bible, like one of the most intense and gruesome things. But they as a tribe protected these wrongdoers, these evildoers, and the other nations came against them, warred against them, and almost wiped them completely out. There's another contradiction associated with this month, associated with Benjamin. See, King Saul, was from the tribe of Benjamin, and he was supposed to kill King Agag. He didn't. And so, Samuel the prophet had to come in and do that. But years later, Mordecai and Esther, also from the tribe of Benjamin, they took out Haman the Agagite. And so it's a contradiction here. Here's one that doesn't do what he's supposed to do, but here's another from the same tribe that does so. Saul persecuted the Christians, but he became Paul, who was a persecuted Christian himself. Also, Saul from the tribe of Benjamin. And then if you look in Genesis 42, Jacob is blessing all of his sons, and I've referred to this every single month when I talk about the tribes. And here Jacob is blessing each one of his sons, and he's pronouncing this identity, this prophetic word over them. Some are good, some are not so good. And over Benjamin, he says, "You're this ravenous wolf. And in the morning, you're going to eat your prey, and in the evening, you're going to divide the spoil." Well, that's so weird. It's such a contradiction because in the Hebrew thought, evening comes first. In Genesis, it says it was the evening and then the morning, the first day. Evening, the morning, the second day. And so evening comes first. So this is a contradiction in itself that their AM is before the PM. And then the other thing is, if you eat the prey, you're the wolf. What is left? What spoil is left to divide? If you've eaten the prey, then what are you going to divide after that? Because the prey is the spoil, isn't it? And so it just seems like a contradiction there. This is the month, I shared with you last month, was the month when the flood started. It was also the month, a year after the flood started, that they were able to finally get off the boat, get off of the ark. But this is the month where the rain stopped. Okay, so the rain started last month, and then it comes into Kislev 40 days later, and it finally stops. But this is also the month, so this is the month that the flood stopped. This is also the month where the people of God stood in the book of, I think it's Nehemiah, and Ezra reads to them the law, and they stand in the rain for 3 days listening to the law being read to them. So it's the month that the flood stops, but it's also the month where you're willing to stand in the flood rains. And it's a time when in our calendar, December is here, and the world, the culture is saying, rush, hurry, work, shop, buy, bake, party, go, do, right? And God is saying, this is the month of rest. This is the month of sleep. This is the month of dreaming. As a matter of fact, in all of the synagogues, they read a specific Torah portion, a portion from the Torah. And during the month of Kislev, it's about a bunch of dreams. It's the time they actually read the story of Joseph during this month. And it's full of dreams. And this is a time of resting. So there's a contradiction. In Genesis 22, I just read this the other day. I was reading with my children. I'm teaching them the book of Genesis, and we're going very, very slowly and breaking it down just piece by piece, just because I want them to know the word and I want them to know how it all fits in chronological order. And I've read Genesis. I don't know how many times I have read through Genesis, especially, January, you start to read through the Bible in a year and you may not finish, but you always start in Genesis. Well, I've done that a billion times in my life. I feel like I've read Genesis to death. And yet I saw something this week that I'd never seen before. In Genesis 22, or I seen it, I just didn't know what it meant, like what was going on. Right after Abraham is up on Mount Moriah and he's about to sacrifice Isaac, and there's a ram in the thicket, and Jehovah Jireh, right? We know that story. And then God speaks to him and he says, stop, don't kill your son. And then he says, I'm going to make you as numerous as the stars in the sky. I'm going to make you as numerous as the sand on the seashore. And then he leaves the mountain to go home, and he hears this rumor. By the way, your brother has 12 kids now. What? What in the world? And so I just thought, well, that's just a weird interruption. As I read it this week, I went, I know what that is. I see what that is. Here, you've got this one son. You've sent the other one off into the wilderness because his mama and, all couldn't get along. And off they go. And then you got this one son left, and God just asked you to kill him. Now you got him back, but he's not married. He doesn't have any children yet. What in the world? But here's your brother. He's got 12 kids already. And I saw it. The enemy was trying to discourage him. The enemy was trying to come against that prophetic word, that word he had just received. You're going to be as numerous as the stars and the sand. And did he have the faith to endure, to go, you know what? Maybe they're not all going to be born in my lifetime. Maybe this is the one and only son that I'm going to have. Maybe I need to pour into him everything I possibly can, because I've got to pour enough into him that's going to hold him and sustain him all the way through. Because guess who's in Abraham's lineage? Boaz, who married Ruth, David, who fought Goliath, who fought the Philistines, Solomon, who built the temple, Jesus, the Messiah. Like how much did he have to pour into Isaac, for Isaac to pour into Jacob and Esau, for Jacob to pour into all of the 12 tribes, for them to pour into their sons, etc., etc. And sometimes the weight is because God is doing something. We're pouring something out into others. We're preparing something. We're stewarding something. And so the enemy wanted to discourage him and get him to give up on his prophetic word. The enemy cannot steal your prophetic word away from you, but you can give it up. You can lay it down. You can quit on it. You can stop having faith in it. So we have to be the people that steward our word. A lot of times we're like, oh, God quit on me. God failed me. I must have heard wrong. God didn't say that. I thought he did. Or God, that preacher got it wrong. That prophet got it wrong. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, stop. What it really is the enemy came and discouraged our hearts. And because the wait was so long, we gave up. We quit. We put down our sword. We stopped fighting. I talked last year, if you want to search back, about the Maccabees. That means hammer, and that they had to hammer away, and that we take our prophetic word and we just keep hammering away, and we just keep decreeing, God, you said, I'm going to see it, the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, or whatever it is, and you're just hammering away. I'm going to get that job. I'm going to build that business. The prodigal's coming back home. My marriage is going to be restored. My finances are going to be restored. We're going to have that, whatever, right? And you're decreeing that over and over and over, and you can't quit. And that is absolutely still true all the time, but especially in the month of Kislev. But I really feel like when the enemy comes in and discourages us, we just put down our hammer and we stop hammering. We put down our sword and we stop fighting. We give up, we roll over, and then we blame God, or we blame people, and we don't take responsibility, and we don't fight forward. That's a hard word, because we got to take it on, and it's not up to us to make the prophetic word happen. We don't need Ishmaels, right? That's not what, but maybe Abraham didn't need to go and marry Hagar and have a baby there. Maybe what he needed to do was read some parenting books with Sarah. Maybe what he needed to do was make sure he and Sarah were sleeping in the same tent. Isaac gets married to Rebecca and they go and live in Sarah's tent. I'm like, interesting here. But so what did they need to do in order to produce this son? What did they need to do? What did they need to become in order to steward that? Maybe they needed to work on their marriage. Maybe they needed to work on their communication. Maybe they needed to write the vision of, this is what we're going to do with our child. This is what we're going to, allow him to do or not do. He's not having a cell phone until he's 16, or we're not going to buy him a car. He's going to have to earn it himself. I know I'm making it modern, but think about that. Like, what did they have to do and prepare in order to steward this? It took 25 years before God released that promise to him. What was God doing in him? What was God making in him? What was happening in the waiting room with Abraham in his life? And a lot of times we fight God because we think he's against us, because we're going backwards when we think we should be going forwards. But God is, again, I shared this on video before, it's like the arrow. He's pulling back to launch us forward. The further he pulls us backwards, the further forward we're going to go. I want to talk again about Joseph. His life, he lived this contradiction. He's this chosen child, this special kid. He's actually honestly a brat. He's supposed to go out and help his brothers, and he ends up going and tattling on them. He's supposed to go and so he's the one of the youngest kids in the family. He's number 11 out of 12 boys, and he goes and he's tattling on them, and he's walking around in his special coat, his coat of many colors, right? And he's daddy's favorite, and everybody knows it, and they hate him. I wonder if he had a sour attitude. I wonder if he was just rotten. I wonder if he was just a spoiled brat. And so God had to, maybe God had to humble him. Maybe God had to shape him. I know that God had to work forgiveness in his heart towards his brothers. I'm almost certain of that. And so he had to live in that contradiction. He had to go into the pit. He had to go to Potiphar's house. He had to learn how to serve and how to lead and how to move up there in Potiphar's house. And then he's removed from that and put into the prison, and he has to do it all over again before God finally moves him into the palace, into that leadership position. There were skills that God was honing in him. God was teaching him things. There were things that God was cutting and chiseling off of him and out of him. And he had to endure the contradiction because he was becoming something. A lot of times we're just in such a hurry to get to the thing, and we would wreck the thing if God gave it to us. Our children were in the process of we're processing my father-in-law's estate, and the children are going to be inheriting some things, and there's a whole thing that has to be set up for that. And when they become a certain age, they are going to receive this money. And so it's our job, like it's a heavy, weighty thing to know that I'm going to have to prepare these kids so they don't just get up that money and blow it, that they don't get up to this age and just go and do something stupid. And so I'm going to have to teach them, this is your college fund, or this is your down payment on your house, or this is, your first investment on your business. This is something that you're going to do something big with. You're not going to just blow through this. We're not going to go party, and we're not going to go buy a new wardrobe or do something stupid. And I have to teach and train them to be the people that see that know how to steward money well and that operate in wisdom. That's huge on me. But that's what God is doing with us in our lives. The government is not going to allow them to have that money right now because they are not old enough to inherit something at 5 and 9 years old. They are not old enough to just take that. And run with that. What in the world? So there is a system. It's there. It's theirs already. It's already available, but they can't touch it until they get to a certain point in their life. And that's what's happening for us too. God has already spoken a thing. God has already made provision for a thing. God has already prepared a thing for us, but he's shaping us into the people that can steward the thing that he wants to give us. And he's dying to give it to us, but he can't give it to us until we have the maturity to handle it correctly, to steward it correctly. And so, the purpose of this contradiction is to shape you, is to sharpen you. We got to break. God is breaking off the lies off of us. He's causing us to step away from the way that culture sees things and see things in the kingdom way. We have to step out of our family norms and the things that we were taught as kids. Some of us grew up with orphan spirits, poverty mindsets, things like that. We were taught wrong. We were taught wrong. Not that our parents were trying to do evil to us, or our grandparents, or whatever, leaders, teachers, but they taught us something that is not true and accurate. And God is taking us on a journey to reshape us in his image, to break those things off of us, those lies, those plans, those thoughts, those behaviors, those patterns, so that we can steward the thing that he wants to give us. As I was preparing this, and I didn't mean for it to go this long, thank you for enduring to the end. But I thought of the story of the donkey, and maybe you've heard the story. This old donkey falls into the well, and the farmer's like, it's too much trouble to dig him out of there, hoist him up out of here. I don't even know how to do that. We're just going to cover him up. So get some buddies, they come by, and they start shoveling dirt down on this donkey. And this donkey could be depressed. He could feel dejected. He could go, oh, they're burying me alive. Oh, woe is me. And that's what we do a lot of times. We freak out. We go, God, what are you doing to me? Farmer, I've served you all my life, and now you're covering me up with dirt. You're just going to leave me here to die? And we feel like that's what God is doing. Like, you're just covering me up with dirt. You're just leaving me here to die. And really and truly, that's not what's happening at all. And so what the donkey does in the story, which is really, really cool. I love the story. What the donkey does is the dirt comes down on his back. He starts to shake the dirt off. as the bad things come against him, the things meant to destroy him, he shakes it off and he stomps on it, and he shakes it off and he stomps on it, and they keep throwing dirt down there and he keeps shaking it off and he keeps stepping on it. And guess what happens? Eventually they throw so much dirt down there that the hole fills up, the well fills up, and he's able to step out of the well. What was meant, the enemy meant to destroy him, God meant to promote us. That's what happened with Joseph. That's what happened with the children of Israel. God was doing those plagues. Why? He sent those plagues to show them these gods here are not your God. They worship the sun. Look, I'm going to turn that to nothing. It's going to be pitch black. They worship the Nile. Guess what? I'm going to turn that to blood. You can't worship the Nile. They worship this. They worship that. And I'm going to destroy everything that they worship, because I want you, not just them, but I want you to see me as supreme over the gods of this land. And so I want you to see that. And God is saying that to us. I'm trying to break some things off of you. I'm trying to break some habits, some mindsets, some behaviors. I'm trying to show you a different way to think of this. The donkey could have rolled over and just died. He could have been depressed. He could have felt dejected. But instead, he shook it off. He stepped up. He continued to move forward. He continued to fight against the thing that was fighting against him. And I said, God, how do you want me to end this today? I've shared all this. And I had written these notes, and I'm like, but what do you want me to say at the end? Because I always have an awkward time. Like, what do I do? Why do I say goodbye? How do I close this out? And so he told me to tell you to wait well. Wait well. Don't waste time. Don't make excuses. And ask the Lord, God, what do you want me to learn right now? How do you want me to grow right now? How do you want me to respond to this right now? What do you need me to stop doing, or start doing, or do more of, or do less of in this season? God, how do you want me to see things differently? All this year, God has been working on us from January to even now, to look at money differently. And he has been taking us on this journey about finances and money. And I thought I was doing a good job before this. And he started showing me things. He started teaching me a way to think about things. And we went to a house. I think I've shared this with you before. And it was way beyond our means. And we went and we looked at this house, this open house. And we were like, oh, this is the perfect house. This fits with the dream that God has given us. This is exactly it. All of us, we were just like, this is a perfect house. This will be amazing. And we started to pray, like, God, give us this house. And I felt like the Lord say, I need you to become the people who can steward this house. And this aligns with what I've just shared with you. God is saying to you today, I need you to become the people that can steward the vision. I need you to lean into me, to learn and to grow, to become the people. Something that you're doing may not be working. Something that you're believing may not be accurate. Something that you think may not be the right way to think. And so God wants you to wait well. And so in this time of waiting, stop the excuses, stop wasting time, and ask him, how do you want me to learn? How do you want me to grow? How can I wait well?